First off, I just want to say hello and thank you for clicking on my video. I wanted to try making a level in Mega Man Maker, and the funny thing is, I've never actually played a Mega Man game except for one on the Game Boy Advance, which wasn't really a Mega Man game, but anyhow. So, the level I created was called Fire and Ice, and as you'll see in a moment, it takes, from what I understand, the basic concept of a Mega Man level is it introduces mechanics in a safe environment, and then it expands on it and makes it a little bit more difficult, and then you fight a boss who kind of goes with those mechanics. So I took two themes, which was Fire and Ice, and as you'll see later in the video, I didn't actually make the level correctly, but I still had fun making it, and I wanted to see what else I could do with this. So without further ado, let's get into the level. Okay, so here's my level of Fire and Ice. Let's just start it up. There's only two different types of weapons, I guess you would say. So the first part of the level is kind of a tutorial for people who haven't played Mega Man before, like me. So here we see, you got a jumping obstacle, you can just jump over it easily, and it teaches you how to slide. And the first enemy you run into, I apologize, I'm really bad at this game, so it took a while to kill him, I took a couple hits, but... So as we move on, as you see here, there are two different pathways you can take, which is kind of just to give you like an example of what's to come. So as you see, if you just climb down the ladder, you can actually finish the level here. I didn't have a quite understanding of how Mega Man levels work, and you can only have one boss per level from what I understand, so there's two bosses, so if you do try out the level, just know that. Okay, so the first level we're going to go to is the fire level, and a quick mechanic that I wanted to show with this one is the floating platform. As you can see in the beginning, it gives you a safe space to try and use these platforms, in case you fall off, or if you're like me, you didn't know exactly how they worked. So, but in the next part, there is a harder challenge that comes with the platforms. Now, the next challenge with this is not exactly difficult, but, if you fall off, game over, and it's just to show you that if you fall down, or the platform disappears and you don't get off in time, it's going to kill you and you're going to have to go back to the last checkpoint. So the next part of the fire level is just this long platform with these flying fireballs that spawn from the bottom of the map. The reason why I picked these guys is that when they first spawn out, you can't actually hit them. It'll deflect the bullets you shoot at them. Which is to show later in the next boss fight that sometimes enemies have vulnerability and they'll just deflect whatever you shoot at them, so you have to be aware of that. So with the platform mechanic and the enemy mechanic, the next part introduces both of them at the same time in a situation where you can die. So the first few times you meet these mechanics, it's in a safe place, you can't die, but now you have the challenge of facing on both of them. So after getting past the last challenge, you go into the boss room, and what's interesting about Mega Man bosses is that they have this little power-up charge in the beginning to kind of show you how much health they have, and while that's also happening, you get introduced to the fact that there are those fireballs from earlier are part of the boss fight, which I think is great to remind you that, when you first shoot them, it's going to bounce off, and this boss also has the same mechanic. So now that we understand the mechanics of the fight, let's watch it play out. So great, the boss is down. Now you notice that you got the fire power up. Now what I wanted to build initially was that, if whatever path you took in the beginning, it was going to be difficult in a sense, but then once you beat the boss, you get the power up that the other boss is weak to. So it kind of gives you a choice where you want to go first and how you want to approach the main level. So now we find ourselves back at the hub, and the only place left to go to is the ice portion of the level. So while the last level is more about jumping and dodging, I wanted the ice level to be more about shooting and jumping. So as you'll see, the way jumping is affected in this world is the ice tiles actually, it'll make it's slippery. It kind of messes with jumping a bit, and as you'll see later in the boss fight, this can get you hurt in different portions of the fight. So much like the other level, I wanted to introduce the enemies in a safe place for the player to deal with, and while these enemies are easy to kill with the fire buff, the slippery form makes them kind of difficult to deal with, especially the flying guys, as it's hard to get into a good position with the floor to shoot at them. So we finally made it to the boss room, and you'll notice that this guy shoots these snowflakes in a certain pattern where you can jump through them. Now what makes it interesting is that the floor sometimes, when you'll try to move to get into a good position to jump, you'll go further than you expected and you'll get hit. So now let's watch the boss fight play out and see what happens. You'll notice that this boss fight was a lot shorter than the last boss fight, and that's because of the fire power up. Obviously the ice boss is its main weakness is the fire, and the fire boss weakness is the ice power up that you would have got from the ice boss. So now that both bosses are down, let's head back to the hub and see this level finished. Although you could finish at any time, now that we have downed both bosses, we can end the level and move on. While this level may not have the polish of an actual Mega Man level, its main goal was to introduce a mechanic to the player and have them learn it, experience it, and ultimately present that mechanic as a challenge that the player must overcome. The second goal of this level was to present bosses that use those mechanics throughout the level and present an even greater challenge to the player. Lastly, it was also to give them a power-up that they can use on a boss later in the level. And that's my level, so hopefully you enjoyed it. If there's anything that you think I should improve on, let me know. You can download Mega Man Maker for free and try it out yourself. Thank you and have a good one.